Think of your favorite video game franchise ever. Maybe it's Pokemon or Zelda, or maybe through some insane coincidence, it's Monster Hunter. Regardless, most popular franchises, whether it be a movie or a game, share one very important element, and that's a mascot. Some even have several. For Pokemon, it's Pikachu, but you can also argue that Charizard is worthy of that title. Basically, if you look up merch on Amazon for your franchise and the same dude keeps showing up on everything, there's a pretty high likelihood that they're the series mascot. In the case of Monster Hunter, no monster fits the bill more than Rathalos. I mean, shit man, the dude is on like half of the boxes, especially if you count his stupid blue flying shit-eating cousin, but we'll get to him. But first off, who is Rathalos? Yes, we all know he's the basic iconography for a European-style dragon within the Monster Hunter universe, but what purpose does he serve? Who is Rathalos? To some, he is a powerful and terrifying in-game fight, and to others, he might just be the final gate to high rank. Rathalos stands almost as a baseline to everything Monster Hunter is. No matter where you fight him or when you fight him, he's always there. He's the Mario of Monster Hunter. Nobody is surprised when he shows up. Bro didn't even show up for the Wilds advertisement, and we still knew he would be there to get his ass beat. His design is very simple and easy to understand to anyone new to the franchise, which not only makes him very advertisable, but also leads him to being very iconic. The dude is so integral to the franchise that they even put him in the logo.
飛竜みたいなものをまずデザイナーがデザインしたっていう それ以上でもそれ以下でもないかなと思ってて、
だから初代のロゴの上にあるのはレイヤーなんです。
Wait a minute.
そうだから
It's not Rathalos? Before we can talk about the other Rathalos bloodlines, it's only natural that we get his ancestral gene out of the way. This is Rathalos' green poison wife, Rathian, and yes, she's the dragon in the logo, not Rathalos. The story goes that when developing the original Monster Hunter, the team created Rathian first as this sort of green poison dragon. They then took this design and painted it red and made it shoot like a little bit more fire than before. Excellent gambit, Capcom. Originally, Rathalos was a massive hurdle for new hunters within the context of Monster Hunter 1. Rathian basically exists as a low-rank, little itty-bitty baby version of Rathalos. Her patterns are the same in almost every single game. She has set orders in which she does her moves, and generally is less aggressive than Rathalos. Basically, you go girl, give us nothing, and I love her for it. You go queen. Through this, Rathian essentially prepares new players for the challenges to come later on in the game, while also giving it a sense of gravitas once you finally get there. So, if we have baby Rathalos and normal Rathalos, it's only sensible that there would be something even greater beyond that. In 2006, about 2 years after the release of Monster Hunter 1, Capcom would release Monster Hunter G. And they had a bad case of Rathalos fever, baby. Okay guys, we have to push out this game in a couple of months, and we still don't have a flagship in mind. Who are we putting on the box? We could put the new variant of Monobolus on the front. I mean, he's the final boss of the village from the first game, so maybe it would get the point across that this is the ultimate version of the old game. Yeah, Gary, I don't know. I mean, is Monobolus even really that marketable? Boss, I know. Let's take the Rathalos guy and make him blow. You, sir, are a goddamn genius! And so, Azure Rathalos was born, to literally everyone's chagrin. They slapped this blue motherfucker on the box art and shipped it along with 3 other Rathalos-shaped prizes inside. This game introduced Pink Rathian, a harder variant of Rathian similar to Azure Rathalos, Silver Rathalos, and Gold Rathian. They're basically the super mega ultra powerful master rank version of the two. And they appear at the end of the most ultimate expansions. Now, before we continue on through the generations of Monster Hunter, we have to take a few detours. The first being Monster Hunter Freedom, or Portable in Japan. Amongst the many popular Monster Hunter fan theories, few are more foundational than the origins of Yin Garuga. Some old gen players noticed that Yin Garuga actually borrows several moves and traits from Rathian directly, and thus the theory was born. Is Yin Garuga actually a hybrid of Yinkaku and Rathian? No, not officially, but it was mentioned in an NPC's dialogue in Generations Ultimate. However, the text squashes this as a sort of baseless rumor.
Okay, when it comes to 2-year-old AJ, Collins, you are not...
Our second detour is Capcom's first attempt at a Monster Hunter MMO, Monster Hunter Frontier. This game has a bunch of insane, ridiculous, but also honestly really cool ass monsters in it. However, it also is the next chronological step in the Rathalos family tree. Meet Zenith Rathalos. He's basically super duper silver Rathalos if he was on fire and red. He also has poison attacks, so you could die from being on fire and poison. So that's pretty neat. I'm kind of brushing over him a little bit so I can talk about this guy instead. Dude, his name isn't even right. This is Zurusu. Despite not actually being called Rathalos, the resemblance is uncanny. He's basically crystal light energy Rathalos. When you cut off his tail or break his appendages, he grows crystals in its place. Even stranger, when you check the wiki for info on this guy, it says his powers are based off a real-life radiation phenomenon known as Cherenkov radiation, which causes underwater nuclear reactions to glow blue. He's just so wildly bizarre for them to take inspiration from, but whatever, he does look cool, I guess. He also has a variant called Sparkling Zurusu, where he has pink crystals and it's scarier, so that's pretty neat. Now, he also has a counterpart monster to mimic the relationship between Rathalos and Rathian, but it's currently unknown. No, literally. The dude's name is unknown. I couldn't make this shit up if I tried. What even happens in Frontier? Unknown, as you could probably expect, looks like a really freaky Rathian, rocking a black and red color scheme. They're basically what Zurusu is to Rathalos, but for Rathian instead. It has a super version just like Zurusu called Supremacy Unknown. That's basically just the impossibly hard version of the normal monster with an extra move that super duper absolutely mega kills your ass. Frontier did, however, introduce one other monster that is pretty similar to the Rathalos family, but we'll talk about him a little later on. I promise. He gets his bag later on. And with that, I just want to apologize for putting you all through the absolute insanity that is Frontier. We could take the next couple games to relax for a bit, as Capcom would sort of move away from making variants of the original Red Dragon during this period. Around 2006, many of the games being released were either enhanced versions of Monster Hunter 1 or variations on the second generation, such as Dose and Freedom 2. The third generation was seen as a little bit of a reset for the franchise. Tri removed a few weapons and added a lot of new gameplay mechanics that haven't been seen in entries prior, and once again added no new scaly cousins to the family. However, not all was lost, as the American release of Tri featured everyone's favorite guy, Azure Rathalos, which, technically speaking, makes Azure the flagship in English-speaking territories. Twice! Side note, I can't believe they chose this over the rad-looking Japan box with the goat Brachydios on the cover. Like, dude, the colors are so sick and vibrant and it's so much cooler than this blue dickhead. Even 4 and 4 Ultimate skipped out on the Rathalos party and even added one of his biggest ops, Steve! Things were looking kinda dire for the Rathalos Empire. One might even say Rathalos stocks were down. The new flagship Gormagala started a new empire of edgy new fans who were smitten by his swag, gradually overtaking the throne of monsters. It wasn't like Rathalos was getting less love, but as the generations went on, the monster design continued to get more and more grandiose and farther away from the grounded nature that the original game tried for. However, things started to sway around the 4th generation's middle child, Monster Hunter Generations. But before we get into real video games, we have to talk about Capcom's fake-ass mobile game that the US never got. Monster Hunter Explorer. I've honestly never even really seen gameplay of this game until doing research for this game, but I've known about all the weird-ass guys in this one for a while. It's basically a love child between Monster Hunter Now and Frontier. This game has a variant of Diablos that is just Alphonse Eric's head on Diablo's body, which I don't even know where to begin with. We have to talk about this one, just a little bit. This game added Flame Rathalos, which, yeah, man, take a wild guess at what that guy does. I'll bet you'll never get it. Destruction Wyvern Rathalos, which is this crazy ass black and blue version of Rathalos that shoots this insane looking like blue energy beam and is rendered on the wiki. They also added a variant of Rathian called Scorching Heat Rathian, who, by the way, is on fire. This game is kind of known for adding a bunch of ridiculous guys, but most people haven't actually played it since it only came out in Japan and Canada for some reason. But now that we ate our veggies, let's move back to Generations before I actually go crazy. Generations didn't actually add a normal variant of Rathalos or Rathian to the game, but instead added like a deviant for both, which was basically the new gimmick for the really strong monsters at the end of the game. They are part of an entirely different system within the endgame, alongside a bunch of other monster variants. Meet Dread King Rathalos and Dread Queen Rathian. I won't lie to you guys, these designs kinda have the sauce. I mean, look the flames on Dread King's wings, like, that shit looks so sick. They're not too crazy looking, but just different enough to know, oh shit, these guys are gonna beat the snot out of me. They're basically just really hard versions of the two with a few different status ailments, just like the others. Dread Queen is basically super duper poisonous all the time and gives you deadly poison, which just basically is really scary poison that kills you really, really fast and makes you die a lot. These additions continue the trend of adding a really strong in-game version of the two monsters so that they can be featured in some way during the end of mastering, whether it was Silver Rathalos or Dread King. For sure, he would be there. Before we begin talking about the 5th generation, there's a few more pit stops on the way to the new world. In 2016, Capcom ventured further into the series' RPG roots in the turn-based spin-off, Monster Hunter Stories. This game plays a lot like a traditional Pokemon game. You collect monsties and use them to battle other monsties and progress through the game. However, this game is worth mentioning because, as it turns out, the monster given to you to start out is actually a Rathalos named Ratha. He's a Rathalos with a cool RPG protagonist scar over his eye, so you know he's really cool and stoic and important and stuff. I can't lie, I haven't actually gotten around to playing these games, both Stories 1 and 2. However, through doing research for this video and the recent Stories 3 announcement, I'm hoping to jump in when it releases. I guess it's also worth mentioning that Stories 2 has a guy named Ray's Wing Ratha, who is like kind of the same guy sort of, except his wings are blue and small this time, and he doesn't have that badass scar, so yeah. There is one more game before we continue on to the next generation, and this one is far less popular to most Monster Hunter fans overall. Monster Hunter Online was a Chinese exclusive MMO released in late 2016. The game was only available until 2019 and closed at almost exactly 3 years flat. Having been shut down due to the contract between Capcom and the Chinese publisher Tencent ending. Unlike Frontier, this game has almost been entirely erased from Monster Hunter history, which is pretty odd because the game honestly looks way more graphically impressive than any of the Monster Hunter games that had come out up until that point. The game only added one new monster to our list, Conflagration Rathian.
Conflagration.
Oh, okay. It shoots fire. Cool. Looking up this monster in the wiki gives you almost zero information on it whatsoever, although the English title for it is Violent Flame Queen, which admittedly is pretty sick. I can only find a few videos on YouTube of people hunting the monster, and yeah, I guess Violent Flame Queen would describe everything new about this version of Rathian. And with that, our detour ends, and we can finally get back to the mainline games with Monster Hunter World. Unfortunately, this game doesn't actually add any new versions of Rathalos, however all the previous normal variants of the Wrath family return, excluding things such as Deviants. Although, once again, Rathalos was the monster featured on the box art, only in America. Again! It does actually look pretty cool this time though, so I can't really complain. I personally have a theory though, that these variants all return due to the ease of development time needed to bring them into the game, considering every monster had to be modeled in a quality that has not previously been so demanding. They were going to put Rathalos in no matter what, so why not reuse the assets they already made to add a couple more monsters to the roster? Overall, World didn't really change much for Rathalos that hadn't already been done before. In the base game of Monster Hunter Rise, players were faced with the final in-game challenge of defeating the Apex monsters. Monsters who survived the storm created by the world's best husband, Ibushi. This in turn created Apex Rathalos and Apex Rathian. Without getting too much into it, they are basically revamped versions of Dread King and Dread Queen from Generations, themed around the new in-game mechanic in order to tie them into the lore. They do look different and are technically named differently, so they count as new variants of the monster. What the fuck ever, man. Just add them to the list. Sunbreak ended up adding the gold and silver variants, but not azure or pink. Also, I feel it's worth mentioning that Rathalos got a pretty revamped moveset coming to Rise in order for him to keep up with the new wire bugs, and honestly, this is a whole different guy. In my heart, Rise Rathalos is the coolest Daniel of the two, and I will die on this fucking hill. Now, as mentioned previously, Frontier added one extra monster that I said we would get into later on, and Sunbreak is that time. Monster Hunter had a previously spotty record of adding its MMO original monsters into the mainline entries, but definitely had a few over the years with Noctitrus and Lavasioth, or, if you will, Volcanos. However, Sunbreak would add a fan favorite to its roster in Espionage. While Espionage isn't blood related to Rathalos Rathian in any way, it would be hard to argue that they don't have similarities. The main thing separating the three are their fighting styles. Rathalos and Rathian often swoop in from the skies like an eagle, where Espionage runs into you like a fucking freight train at full speed all the time. Even his music kind of references this. He also has a variant in Sunbreak called Flaming Espionage, where he's basically more aggressive in every way, and has this terrifying attack where he walks at you and explodes. It's horrifying, and has killed me a lot, and my hunter group, more times than I think any of us are willing to admit. He's not really a direct blood relative, but I just really wanted to mention him. We have one last mainline entry to cover in Monster Hunter Wilds. Wilds is currently in the middle of its title update roadmap, and as of the writing of this video only features one new Rathalos, Guardian Rathalos. This version of Rathalos ties directly into the lore of Wyveria, the game's final locale. The ancient civilization of Wyveria created monsters to use as weapons in order to defend them from other civilizations and monsters before eventually falling to ruin. One of the Guardian monsters they created just so happens to be Guardian Rathalos. It definitely has nothing to do with his popularity or anything. They just totally decided to, randomly of course, create another version of Rathalos. I actually really like this version of Rathalos. The whole bioenergy aesthetic that the Guardians use really works with this version of Rathalos, and I feel like it gives him a bit more menacing, almost lifeless vibe, like he shouldn't actually exist, but does anyway. However, even stranger, this version of Rathalos appears before the normal version of Rathalos in the quest progression, which I'm not sure has ever happened in any games prior to Wilds. Normally, I would end the video here, having talked about every Rathalos ever made, except that would be a lie, because we have a bunch of oddballs to talk about. Okay, so speed round. Rathalos shows up in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as a boss in the game's Classic mode. He only appears in 7 character Classic modes, which is the second least amount of appearances out of all the bosses in the game. Final Fantasy XIV has a collaboration that allows players to hunt Rathalos. This event actually released around the same time as the 14th Collab for World. Rathalos apparently also dabbles in Candy Crush, as he obviously appears in Monster Hunter Puzzles Feline Isles as a bond sponsor. I actually had my roommate record the footage for this segment because I don't play this game, and he does. Monster Hunter Riders is a tie-in mobile game for Monster Hunter Stories that only existed for 2 years and nobody remembers, but it has 3 different guys, so I had to cover it. This game features water and fire Rathalos, but that's not all. You can't leave out water Rathian. I think the game has like a mechanic where you change the elements of some monsters. Who knows? The wiki says almost nothing or words about this game because it's not real. Monster Hunter Fate Isle Voyage is like this old ass phone game from 2011 that has a weird looking version of Rathalos, and I think it's one of those weird early 2000 RPG tie-in games that are almost all entirely lost to time. I don't really even know the wiki has nothing. Okay, Let me take a second. I think we have something kind of normal. Okay, yeah, this is fine. This one's not so bad. Monster Hunter I is an early mobile game based on the first generation of Monster Hunter that is locked to a specific model of Japanese flip phones from 2006. When I say the game is based on Generation 1, I mean it's loosely based on Monster Hunter 1. It's very primitive, and because of that, ultra-low polygon Rathalos was born. He's honestly beautiful. I have no words. If you're interested in this game, Super Rad actually has a whole video that goes further into depth that I'll link in the description. Monster Hunter Mesoporta Reclamation is another Japanese exclusive mobile game where you collect girls and make them fight stuff. Listen man, I'm only including this one because there's a Rathalos that you can fight at some point, and he's there because of course he is. I'm moving on. Monster Hunter Spirits is an arcade card game that, say it with me, only released in Japan. Players would collect cards in order to defeat monsters, I think. The wiki is pretty scarce for info on this one as well, but what's special about this one is that this game has a bunch of baby monster cards. Look at baby Arzuros, he's so fucking cute. Oh, and I guess there's also baby Rathalos too. Yeah, normally I wouldn't need to mention the sequel to some of these weird games because they usually use the same assets, but there's one specific Rathalos exclusive to Spirits 2. By the way, when looking up information on Spirits 2, I couldn't even find a page for it. The game quite literally has zero documentation. The only way I found it was through a hidden away page within the Monster Hunter wiki specifically about Rathalos. The Kuzano Rathalos card is basically a rainbow version of Rathalos that you could get and use in the game. He looks like a holographic Pokemon card, and I'm honestly not even sure that there's anything more to him. Very cool, Capcom. Okay, let's do something normal. Okay, look here. This is Monster Hunter Diary Poka Poka Feline Village. It's basically Monster Hunter Animal Crossing with the goofy little cat designs that were in a lot of the merchandise around that time. In this game, you can send your Palicos on adventures and monsters may randomly show up. Rathalos is one of the monsters, and honestly this might be the best Rathalos design yet. His comically oversized head with his beautifully, almost entirely untextured skin. This is the peak, guys. They should have given up here. Okay, so we have a few more card games to get through before we can talk about the real video games again. Rathalos appears in Teppen, and honestly came with some pretty cool artwork. The artwork for the entire collaboration is actually pretty cool in general, and I would recommend checking it out for yourself. The other card game is Monster Hunter Roar of Cards. It's another mobile card game with almost zero documentation. However, the wiki mentions that this is actually the origin of our good buddy Flame Rathalos. Unfortunately, I can't really find his card anywhere, so we're just gonna have to take their word for it. And we're back to real video games.
Yeah! God, what?
What?
With Puzzles and Dragons. Now, this franchise has collaborated with almost everything, so it's not really all that surprising that it has a Monster Hunter collab. However, the art of this collaboration is surprisingly extremely well made. It's like super detailed for some reason, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why they went so hard for this. Moving on to something more traditional, Rathalos also appears in Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker for the PSP. This one's actually pretty common, but if you look it up and check the wiki for images, one of the first pictures is where Snake is trying to blow up Rathalos with a rocket launcher, and I think that's pretty fucking awesome. Rathalos actually appears in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 as a card. Again, so help me God, if this dude becomes a card one more time, I'm going to crash out. P.S. MVC Infinite also includes this statue of a Rathalos in the background of the Monster Hunter stage, in case you wanted to know. One of the more recent Monster Hunter collabs was with Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, the FF7 mobile gacha game remake thing. You have to defeat a Rathalos in the arena from Monster Hunter World, and some of the characters got a Monster Hunter theme outfit. Our final mobile game is Dragalia Lost. I actually had to do a lot of research to figure out what this game even was. It seems like it was kind of a top-down mobile action RPG type game. Anyways, there's like an event list where you have to fight Rathalos, and he has a bunch of his moves from the main game. I think you can also get a Rathalos to use to fight stuff, so that's pretty cool. And our final collab. Rathalos stepped into real life. Yes, in Japan, they just have Rathaloses? Rathaloses are real in Japan, but only at Universal Studios. We currently do not understand how they have them there or where they come from, but they are the only location in real life that have Rathalos. They have a couple other monsters, but I mean, you can probably find Glavenus in rural France, so who even cares about that guy anyways? With that, however, our grand Rathalos journey ends. It's Ratha over, guys. I've exhausted every wiki page, every ounce of knowledge I have about this franchise, and put it all into the research of this video. Let me know in the comments below if there's any that I miss. I'm sure there's at least another card game that he's in. Anyway, happy hunting, and thanks for watching.